Interestingly, the coxswain of the Berliner Ruderclub boat is actually a Kiwi. So Michael was originally entered, or hoping to enter, to row with what we all affectionately know as the Bad Boys Rowing Club, YROW, to cox them in an 8, but they've entered here in 2 4s, and so he took up the opportunity to cox the Germans. So he was practicing some German with us the other night for calls he was going to make to the German crew, but I think thankfully they mainly speak English, so he should be okay.
But he can clearly understand the umpire, which is good news. So that's the cox, Michael Desiravi, of the German boat on the far side. And here we're looking at Oxford Brookes University. They are the fastest Brookes crew ever, and Brookes have produced some really fast crews. Many of the crew here won in the ladies last year, this event, the ladies plate. Confusing entitled ladies plate for men's 8s. And looking down the boat here, the Oxford Brookes University crew, stroke man, Morgan Balding and Cox Harry Brightmore. I think all of Stern 4 were in the crew last year that won in this race. So this is the semi, and they're looking forward towards the final. Matthew Aldridge in the 6th seat told us we're really looking forward to racing Leander on Sunday. Well, it's Saturday. There's one to get out of the way, so you'd hope now they're focused on this race.
And there's some quality athletes in the German crew. Anton Braun, a stalwart of the German rowing team, Björn Berkner. But in terms of an outfit, I don't know that it gets much better than the Oxford Brookes crew. I mean, they really are, I think, the benchmark for university and club rowing around the world.
Get ready, please.
So this is the worst moment. This is where you want to be, and this is where you don't want to be. And you want to get this man out of the way. Hands are up. The crews are trying to get a line, make sure they're straight before they set off. And start the clock. Get ready.
Go.
And they're away. Patient start from both crews there.
Yeah, it didn't look as explosive as these ace rates often do, but they were winding up steadily and steadily and steadily. Maybe they were both concerned to ensure their first stroke was locked in and wasn't going to be disruptive, but now the power is unleashed and the blades go through and the backs come towards us and the boats surge forward out of the start zone and onto the track.
And that's a good call. It is quite swirly out there at the moment. We know the breeze is picked up there, so making sure that you have that good connection for the first few strokes, because it can really make or break. And the 8, more so than any other boat, you cannot afford to be dropped. You can't even afford to lose a seat, particularly in this match racing scenario. So both crews would have been probably a little nervous to ensure that they really had good purchase for those first 10 strokes to get up and moving.
Yeah, and you know, every seat has its price, and at the moment it looks as though they're both keeping pace with each other. Potentially Brookes just starting to get a little edge as we pick them up from alongside. Really powerful crew this. They are the fastest British crew to have raced in Europe outside the national squad. They picked up a time of 5:29 at Ratzeburg, where they showed the depth of the Brookes squad as well, coming 1st, 2nd and 3rd. And you can see they are really starting to move now. They've picked up 2 or 3 seats just as I've been talking, and that's the power and that's the pace of this Brookes unit.
And they're really holding out the start for quite along here. They're still up very high. They're still very punchy. I think this might have been maybe what they were trying to do, get an early advantage and be able to control the race. Like we said, you can't afford to get dropped in the 8, and so perhaps Brookes putting themselves out there a little bit more to ensure that they can control the race in this early stage.
I'd say you're right there, Sarah. If you're the Brookes crew and you know you're the fastest non-national squad crew the country's produced, then what are you going to do in a race like this? You're going to really take it out early and then hope that you can sit on it and control it down and consolidate the position. And as we said, the crew are really looking to the final, having been in the final and won it last year, 4 of them at least. So they're working to work their way through this, and probably the best answer is a really fast start, dispose of the opposition as quickly as you can, and then consolidate and prepare. Looking here, umpire Matthew Pinsent is yet untroubled by the steering of the Berliner Ruderclub crew, so it feels like they may have learned their lesson. They're rather much more conservative, staying on their side of the course, probably much more focused on the work they need to do. Yesterday they were ahead all the way down, and here they find themselves in the other position, which is a much harder place to be. What do you think they'll be thinking in that German boat, Sarah?
Look, they would have known they had their work cut out for them facing Oxford Brookes. They're undoubtedly the crew to beat here. So I think they would have known today would have been a tough ask to try and overthrow them. But I think, provided they can all understand their coxswain, although the Kiwi accent does make it questionable, then no one will fault them for that. But yeah, look, it's really hard to be racing down on a crew. I think, you know, Michael's job as the coxswain of that crew and for all of the athletes is to stay composed and to just keep racing this out and to keep the margin as close as possible. We have spoken about a few times now the fact that unexpected things do happen here. We've seen crews catch crabs for no seeming reason, hit booms. So there are mistakes that happen in these high-pressure match racing scenarios. So things that maybe wouldn't normally happen that do, because it is such a high-pressure environment when you're racing in these one-on-one gladiatorial battles down the course, particularly in an A.
Yeah, and looking here, as you rightly say, it's a gladiatorial battle, and the Germans, I think, are suffering a little bit from fatigue from yesterday and haven't quite got the speed to stay with the Brookes crew, which means that they're starting to look a little bit weary. You can just see that blade work on the German 8 there getting a little bit more ragged, a little bit less precise than it was when they were in the lead yesterday and than when they were alongside Oxford Brookes. Brookes, by contrast, you can just see a little bit more looseness in those shoulders, looking there at the bowman Quentin Antognelli. The first Henley Regatta for him in a sweep-oared boat, so he's a sculler, and you can see that really smooth action that we know from sculling translating well into the bow seat. Critical role to set up the boat from the bows. Absolutely.
It wasn't until in our national crew that we put one of our top athletes in the bow seat that I actually realised the importance of having a really skilled oars person sitting in the bow of the boat. It makes such a difference to be able to be really skillful through there to keep the bow up out of the water and also to importantly balance the boat. They have a huge effect on the balance in the bow pair, so you do really pay for having pay the price for having people who perhaps aren't quite as skilled up in the bow end. And typically, you know, the way that it works when you're a bit younger is that there's a perception that perhaps the best rowers are in the front of the boat and the not so good rowers are at the back end of the boat, but it could not be more far from the truth. Every seat has such a critical role to play in the eights, and the skillfulness of bow pair particularly so.
Completely agree. You know, the way you seat a boat is something that needs to be played around with, and it's like playing the keys of a piano to try to find the combination that makes music. And you're right, the bow pair setting it up, helping to allow the usually more powerful athletes in the middle of the boat to have a steady platform, because once you've got that steady platform you can just drop that power down. It makes all the difference. Looking here from behind at the Germans and from in front at the fastest Brookes crew, and they're now looking like they're almost out for a training paddle. They've got such a strong lead here, and it's semi-finals day. This is quite a remarkable performance because the Berliner crew are no slouches, and so Brookes really in a very comfortable position.
That's right, some quality athletes in the German crew, no doubt about that, but the way that this Brookes crew is rowing, when you look at the two crews from behind, it really is clear as to why they are going faster. Incredibly skillful. You can see that splash coming off either side of their blade as they pick it up together. Very little disruption to the boat, and really well timed through the back end of the stroke. Patient there to really finish it off and push the boat away every stroke, whereas the German crew, I mean, they are rating higher, so it probably amplifies it, but they're really not quite as composed through the back end of the stroke as that Brookes crew is.
A great row by Brookes, undefeated this season apart from one race in Seattle against Washington. A really fast day, and they will be totally focused now on the finals tomorrow. So we see there into the Oxford Brookes University crew, really the class act that we expected them to be. They raced it out in the early stages, but really were able to shut that race down and conserve a little bit of energy. You can see the Berliner Ruderclub crew from Germany, not good enough today to progress through in the ladies' challenge plate.